have been taught, and I grew up in a Christian household as well,
Yeah.
to leave it to God, right? And so I think the answer to some of this is that it doesn't have to be either or. It
Right.
doesn't have to be mental health or faith-based. I think that we need to learn to use both of them, because your faith, your belief system, it's a tool. It is a tool to be able to get down on your knees and pray if that's what you believe in. It's a tool. And a lot of people will say that they feel more grounded when they pray.
Awesome, everybody. Welcome back to another, and I do mean another episode of this amazing show, the CVMK show, because it is what it is. I am your host, Mr. CVMK himself, Cody Vernon Marshall Kelly. For those who know, you know. And it goes down. I want you to connect with me on every platform. I mean, every platform. I mean, it's 4 letters, y'all. CVMK. How difficult can it be? Put it in YouTube, put it in the search bar, hit share, like the notification bell, Instagram, CVMK33. It is what it is, _show, and CVMK Global. We're the best. And I do mean the best supplements are. I got one with me right now because I had to bring it with me, the Protein Transform, because that's how it gets down. That's how I recover. That's how I stay young, because I'm not that young. But that's how I do these things. We have an amazing guest. You know, mental health is an avenue of advocacy that needs to be mandated. Something I personally believe. I believe in it. I think a lot of the complexity in the world is because we won't deal with the truth of society and the truth of our own inner workings. And when you're not willing to deal with oneself will deal with you. So I brought in somebody who is much more educated in this vein, in this avenue, in this niche than I am, because I'm going to mislead you down the wrong path unless we're praying, and then I got you. We talk about Christ, I got you. Anything outside of that, you might need somebody else. So I have none other than fantastic Noderea. Noderea, how are you doing today?
I am good. I'm loving your energy, and I am good and happy to be here.
Thank you. Happy to have you. Well, look, Noderea, those who know, but maybe you're new to this tribe, new to this village. If you could just give an introduction on who you are, what you do, we'll get into it.
Sure. So my name is Noderea John. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am a private practice owner. The name of my practice is North Node Therapy. We're based in New York. My practice is a group practice. I have a team of clinicians, and we're focused on providing racially competent and culturally competent care within the BIPOC community. I also am the owner of Creating Change Coaching, which is my coaching practice, and I have a journal. I am also the author of Creating Change Guided Wellness Journal. So that is a little bit of who I am and what I do.
You see why I brought Noderea on? You see all the things: author, coach, owner, clinician, all the things that we need in society to really help us just be better human beings as a whole. Well, look, I'm super excited about you being on the show. Super excited about having you. My caffeine content has got me stumbling over my words right now, but it's going to be an amazing show. One of the things that I always like to start with is the why behind it, because I think there's a lot of voices, and I don't, pseudoscience, pseudo wisdom, and pseudo therapy is dangerous, right? I think Instagram should be a platform for visibility, but never for truth, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, I'm always investigative, or I'm always curious about the reasons why anyone goes into the field that they go into, right? So why did you go into therapy?
So why did I go into therapy? I'll say that when I was a younger girl, I came from a Caribbean household, right? And my parents pushed me to become a doctor. So as a little girl, I grew up with the mindset as I'm going to be a doctor one day. I'm going to be a doctor one day. And as I was getting older and getting to know myself and who I am and what I actually liked and my interests, I realized that I was interested in talking to people, and I was interested in helping people, and I like problem solving. And I was always the younger person in the crew, but yet my opinion was sought after and valued, and I enjoyed helping people just work through whatever they had going on. And when it was time to, declare a major and go to college, I realized that what I really wanted to do was talk to people and help people, because it's what I did. It's what I did for free, and I enjoyed it. And it's what I wanted to develop a skill set to really do. And so I decided to become a therapist, a social worker to be exact, because, after some education, I realized that the field of social work just creates such a large umbrella for me to be able to help people from various aspects. And that's what I did. I became a clinical social worker.
I like it. So, from your experience, right? So, you feel this calling, you get pushed, and I think parental guidance is absolutely needed because you need to push children. Mm-hmm. And you're like, hey, look, I appreciate the medicinal route, wanting me to become a doctor. In this field of being a doctor, I think this is where I can excel, right? So I'm going upon this path, and you go into clinical work, and as a social worker. So I'm sure you have encountered traumatic experiences, things that would keep the average person up at night, that they would have to, take sleepy time tea and ashwagandha just to kind of like vacate, right? right. So trauma's real, right? Is it in everything? Like, can we assume? First of all, I'm sorry, this is a long question, so let's break it down. First thing, has everybody encountered or experienced trauma? Has everybody, I guess, partook in it, or has it happened to them?
I wouldn't use the word everybody, but I would say that it is safe to assume that most people have experienced some sort of trauma at some point in their life, right? Because we have to think about trauma is not only what you experience, it's also there are things that we witness or learn about that can be traumatic to learn, right? Traumatic to see. Think about, I'm growing up, especially in a Black community.
Yeah.
And the things that we learn about, the things that we see on a day-to-day basis, a lot of it can be traumatizing to just witness it, or to learn that this happened to someone that you knew, or someone that you know, or someone that looks like you.
That's true, because I met Mammy Till Mobley, and I remember being 10 and listening to the story of Emmett Till, and it destroyed me as a youth. So let's go. Is trauma therefore treatable?
I would say yes. And so let's talk about what that means, right? Yes, trauma is treatable. When someone is experiencing trauma, what that often means is that they had this experience that was really scary, frightening, or upsetting, and changed the way they function, changed the way they live their life. And so they tend to then have this residual stuff that's showing up for them. They tend to have these sensations or these emotions that are showing up in their body every time that they think about this situation, every time something triggers that. And they tend to find themselves really being upset and constantly in the past living in that trauma. And so in treating that trauma, what it is helping a client or a patient learn how to live in the present and learn how to manage those symptoms, manage those feelings, and what to do about it when these things that are upsetting them and triggering them continue to show up for them. A lot of times in treating trauma, what that means is teaching a client how to do meditation, how to do visualization, how to do breath work, how to do movement. Trauma, as they say, it lives in the body, not so much in our mind. So it is working with the clients, not only doing talk therapy, because that's important. Clients want to be able to tell their story and talk about what happened to them and what they experienced, but also then teaching that person, as you're talking about these experience or this particular experience that happened that was traumatizing, how do you take care of yourself? These sensations are going to show up for you. How do you learn how to navigate that so that it no longer gets the best of you? right? Because what happens oftentimes is this person, again, they're reliving this experience and it's upsetting. It's really, really extremely uncomfortable. And they don't know what to do about this uncomfortable feeling. In therapy, what I teach a lot of people is that this feeling is really, really uncomfortable, and it's frightening, but it's never going to kill you. So if you can learn, and that's eye-opening for a lot of people, right? Because a lot of clients will say, I went to the hospital, I went to the emergency room, I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Right. And so in just the knowledge that this thing is really uncomfortable and it's really scary, but it's never going to kill you. And so if you can learn how to tolerate it, work through it, manage it, that in itself is treatment. Right? Because then that means that those sensations that once frightened you no longer get the best of you, because you know now, hey, this thing can't kill me. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to notice what's happening to me. And just as this thing showed up for me, it's also going to go, because the feeling also goes. And the central nervous system has a way of just taking care of our bodies. And so sometimes clients need to just be in therapy to learn that information, and then to learn other tools like, breath work, yoga, meditation, visualization, figuring out what works for them. So yes, trauma is treatable.
Like, we're going to go into this treatment of trauma because I want to unpack that and I think really explore. And, obviously as the Christian skeptic that I am, let's discuss. Quick word from our sponsors.
There's a hero in all of us waiting to be unleashed. All it takes is just that one last push. Activate the hero within with CVMK Global Supplements. All natural, steroid-free, designed to enhance performance, build muscle, and increase energy. You are unstoppable. You can do this. Become your own hero at www.cvmkglobal.store.
All right, y'all, www.cvmkglobal.store. Get the pre-workout Superpower or Warrior Thirst. Get the Protein Transform, the BCAA Saucy, and for the men and the women, the Super Thick Creatine. I'm telling you, it is a game changer. www.cvmkglobal.store. So, Noderea, you brought up the treatment of trauma. You brought up visualization, breathing, yoga, these mechanisms to treat the bodily response to what you encountered, right? Why are grammatically that so needed? And then how much power, because my therapist said something to me. She said, feelings are not facts, but they are real, right? So how do we manage those feelings with these activities? So with these activities that I mentioned, we're talking about managing the sensations that are showing up for you in your body. Okay.
Right. And so, your feelings and your emotions, it's not facts, but like your therapist said, it is real. The sensations are also real that are showing up for you in your body, and helping clients identify like this. Okay, so this feeling shows up for me in my stomach every once in a while as I'm reliving my trauma. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what can we do about your stomach? What is the movement? What is the breathing exercise? What is the thing for you that we're going to do to help you manage that feeling and navigate it so that it no longer gets the best of you?
What do you think? So I agree with the techniques and the strategies, the methodology. I agree with that. What is the biggest roadblock to, I would say, even having the discussion of mental health? I think it's no longer taboo, right? But it's still like in every sector. It's still like, what's the biggest challenge?
I would say the biggest challenge to mental health, or the biggest roadblock, as you put it, is, and there are a few, but the first thing that comes to my mind is the stigma that is associated with having a mental health issue. When I talk about the stigma, I'm talking about the shame and the embarrassment that is associated with having a mental health issue. I think that there's still a lot of misinformation and lack of education regarding mental health. And so because it's something that we can't see, people doubt that it's real. And then on top of that, the way that mental health issues are often discussed within certain communities, certain homes, it tends to be very insensitive and lack compassion, right? And so in homes, and I'm sure we've all heard it, and some of us use those words, people say stuff like, this person is crazy, this person is stupid, this person is slow, this person is just acting up. Right. And those things, I think those things put us in a box, right? Put someone in a box to say, well, I don't want to come out and share that I'm also experiencing these things because this other person is being judged so harshly. Why would I want to now share with people that I'm also struggling with my own mental health? So I think as a result of that, people try to deal with their mental health privately and quietly by self-medicating with drugs, with alcohol, with other things that sometimes are just maladaptive coping skills rather than seeking the help of a professional, right? And think about this, like when we talk about challenges with mental health, we're talking about mental illness.
Right.
And we would never say to someone to deal with any other illness on their own. We would never say to someone, figure out how to deal with your asthma on your own. Figure out how to deal with cancer or diabetes on your own. So we should never, no one should ever feel like they needed to deal with their mental illness on their own. That should be dealt with and supported by a professional. Other roadblocks that I think are present regarding mental health and mental illness is just learning how to navigate the healthcare system.
Yeah.
That in itself is a challenge. Not everyone knows how to do that. I think a long time ago, when people thought of going to therapy, they thought it was something that was only present for the rich. Because you think of going to talk to someone and spending $200-$300 an hour. Nowadays, most health insurance pays for mental health services. A lot of therapists, including my practice, we accept health insurance. And so that a lot of people still don't know that. A lot of people are still surprised that you can address your mental health and probably just be responsible for your copay. So that's important. I also think another roadblock is finding a therapist.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a therapist. It's even harder to find Black therapists. It's harder to find therapists that you can relate to, that can relate to you, that understands your culture, that understands your language, right? A lot of people are afraid to seek help because they think they're going to be misunderstood, right? So I think that, again, just to sum it up, there are many different roadblocks to mental health: the stigma, the lack of education, navigating the healthcare system, and being able to find a therapist. I think those are some major roadblocks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have no disagreement at all about it. I think as the siren goes by, living in Chicago is a beautiful thing. So hopefully this will make the edit.
I know. I am in New York, so yeah.
I'm in the middle of something. I'll be like, man, who is acting up today? Dealing with the stigma of it. The word, crazy, because we only identify it as an illness when it is an extreme outburst, and usually at that point there's some type of violence or something negative to that degree, right? Seeing the warning signs, I think is hard because we don't want to flush out what is causing these triggers. And we also don't want to be responsible for the environments that we create, right? Because I think also if the mind is interpreting data, and that's what it does, it interprets everything, sensory perceptions, cold, heat. I mean, the mind is literally a processing chip. It's only interpreting what is present, right? It's not interpreting what is not. So the environmental factors that influence behavior, there's just a lack of responsibility across the board. And I think it's hard for the society to accept fault because nobody wants to be guilty. Everybody wants to be, hey, well, I got through it. I got through it, and that mentality, and I'm not against it. I'm not saying that we, placate to everything, but at the same time we also have to realize the role in which we play, all right, and a lot of this. The second thing, I think it is affordability. There, and that without getting to the economics of it all, but if you're particularly dealing with the BIPOC community that has an average household income of $48,000, this is an service that is probably not feasible. So now we shift to, well, what is feasible, and behaviors that are detrimental, and it's an and because this is where it gets interesting. I've been thinking about the role of faith and how it interacts, particularly the Christianity, specifically Jesus, right? Like, how does he interact with this? And that's a very singular focus. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe. So we'll talk about that, right? And there's a lot of episodes of mental health in the Old and New Testaments, from Nebuchadnezzar eating grass to King Saul being so worried he'd have to have David play the harp to calm him down. Mm-hmm. Now that you start going back at these things, you start realizing, like, these people were suffering from mental health things. And I think, and it's not that we can't spiritualize help, because obviously he's the helper, but I think sometimes we don't realize that you play a role in your own miracle. You play a part in it. And we can have God do everything, but there is a responsibility that we do towards him. And when the two are not aligned, you never really get transformation, right? And I think sometimes, maybe out of just traditions, and correct me, I think it's easier for us to shift the weight unto God, not out of love. It'd be different if it was the language of love, but out of the lack of control than it is to say, what do I need to do in conjunction with who you are, right? Am I wrong?
I agree with you. I agree with you that a lot of times we shift the weight to God because of, like you said, lack of control and this avoidance. We don't know what to do. And when we don't know what to do, we have been taught, and I grew up in a Christian household as well, to leave it to God, right? And so I think the answer to some of this is that it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be mental health or faith-based. I think that we need to learn to use both of them, because your faith, your belief system, it's a tool. It is a tool to be able to get down on your knees and pray if that's what you believe in. It's a tool. And a lot of people will say that they feel more grounded when they pray. They feel more grounded when they tap into their Bible. Earlier I mentioned meditation and visualization and yoga. Those are all spiritual practices. Yeah. So as a therapist, I encourage my clients to tap into and to find different spiritual practices that work for them. I think we have to take out the mindset again of either or. There are Christian-based therapists for those reasons, right? Because people don't want to feel like, I can't talk about prayer with my therapist, or I can't talk about my Bible, or whatever it is. And there are lots of therapists out there who, again, just invite and encourage people to bring whatever tools that they have that have always worked for them to the work that's being done, and add it to the toolbox. And figure out, okay, at what points do you tap into prayer? At what points do you tap into your faith and rely on that to help you? Because it is important.
When you talk about tapping into the toolbox, and I think this is about association, finding, I think, vetting the right therapist, because I think a lot of times, we don't know, here's how I found my therapist. ZocDoc app, right? It was an app I put in my insurance. A list of therapists came up. I was like, well, look, I don't want to travel. I want to meet remotely. So, via digital, whatever. And then I started looking. I was like, well, I don't need that, but the licensing and the letters behind the names confused me. Some had this, some had that, some had this and that. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. And then I met with a couple and I was just like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be, Is there a criteria, like, for those who are asking, like, what is the criteria which somebody should go about selecting a therapist?
So I would say, think about finding your therapist like finding a partner.
Sure.
You're going to have your first date or 2 or 3, and then you're going to say, I want to continue seeing this person, or I don't. Same thing with therapy. You're going to have your first session or 2 or 3, And each time you're going to be assessing to see, is this person the right fit for me? And I think what you need to be thinking about, or someone needs to be thinking about when they're finding a therapist, is, do they understand me? Do they understand my culture? Even if they don't, are they open to listening and getting to know who I am? Or are there these preconceived notions that they are, judging me by?
Sure.
Right. So I think that that's a part of it. And do I feel comfortable opening up to this person? Do I have this sense of worry that this person is going to, take what I said, and next, children's services is going to be in my home because, I just said something where it's just like, that's not even what I meant. So you have to feel comfortable with your therapist.
It's kind of like finding a pastor. It's kind of like finding a church. I mean, it's the same kind of process. You be like, do I really see myself here? I like the praise and worship team, but I don't know.
Absolutely. Yep. You have to feel at home with your church.
That's true. Yeah. So I think there is a linkage there. Got a couple more questions that I have that just kind of came to my mind. One word from our sponsors.
I literally just tried the best pre-workout on the planet. With Superpower pre-workout, you have increased focus and a power boost every single time you work out. It's not only packed with 225 milligrams of caffeine, but it also has citrulline and creatine. It's insane how much energy and focus I had during my workouts. If you're ready to take your workouts to the next level, then ditch your current pre-workout and get the Superpower pre-workout to be your own hero.
www.cvmkglobal.store, where it goes down. Buy it today. Use code CVMK. 15% off. Just like the YouTube channel. Put it together. So, we talk about unpacking that, and we talk about trying to find somebody and finding this right fit. But I think there is a process that most people don't want to go down. Your therapist or your pastor, and I believe it's an and approach. I don't believe it's an either or. I believe you should have a pastor, and I believe you should have therapists, and I believe you should be able to exchange information between the two. And then for your well-being, because you're a tripart being, you should be able to have a more balanced and optimized life. And a trainer, right? So your pastor, your therapist, and your trainer. But the process can be a lot. It can be to unpack somebody, to go back from the beginning. And when somebody is trying to heal, right? Healing isn't always cool. Right. Like, I remember one time I messed my foot up. No. I'll even recent. I had back surgery in 2017. The healing process was not that cool. I mean, the rehab, trying to learn how to walk and run and jump. And I was different. And Noderea, would it be safe to say that most people are afraid of what healing looks like because you would have to operate in a new space?
Yeah. I would agree with that people are afraid of the healing process because it's not always comfortable. As a matter of fact, most of the time it's very uncomfortable, right? And so you mentioned something earlier that people have to go back and talk about old things. That is not always and the only way to work through your trauma. But a lot of times that is going to be a part of the way to work through your trauma. It's important to remember that this therapy is your time.
Sure.
And regardless of what your therapist is encouraging you to do, you have the right to pace yourself. You have the right to say to your therapist, I want to slow down. I'm not ready to go there today. I can go there, but I'm only going to go this far. Right. And talk through that. Of course, your therapist, I know I would be curious about why. Okay. But usually we respect that. Right. I'm never going to hear a client say to me, this is too much. And me just say, well, keep on going. I understand that sometimes when people say it's too much, they know themselves and they know that it is too much. And that's okay. And we can pace ourselves or the client can pace themselves during therapy. So I say that to say that, yes, working through trauma is very uncomfortable. However, that doesn't mean that you have to shy away from therapy. It doesn't mean that you have to stop therapy because it's too much. That means that it's your opportunity to speak up and say, hey, I'd rather not go there at this session, maybe next week, maybe at another time. This is too much. Right? Because the healing process, I think the other thing to think about is the healing process is not linear, right? And so even if you are going at it and going at a pace, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, there's going to be, moments where it feels good and you're going to be laughing and talking. There are going to be moments where you're going to be crying. There are going to be moments where you thought that you made all this progress, but then something happened and you realize you went right back. Maybe not to square one, but somewhere where you thought you already healed from. And so you need to heal again from that. So it's a process and it's a journey.
The journey. There, you said you wrote a journal. I'm interested. What is the journal about?
Here.
It's right there. A guided wellness.
I have it handy. So yes, it's Creating Change, a guided wellness journal. And the journal has different tools in there. So I mentioned the toolbox earlier. And so I came up with this journal when I thought about, I would give my clients homework assignments and suggest to them, work on this, work on that. And even I would walk my clients through different exercises. And a lot of times the feedback that I would get from clients is it's easier to do it with you in session. But once they get off the Zoom with me or leave my office, they just kind of felt like they didn't know how to do it, even though I explained it, right? And so I put together this journal. It's a guided wellness journal, but it has different tools in there. So it has adult coloring because that has become very popular. A lot of people, when they just need to find themselves feel grounded or just take their mind off of things, they like to doodle and they like to fidget. So there are adult coloring pages in there. There is customizable positive affirmations in there. It teaches you how to create your own positive affirmations. There is a whole coping plan there's a template for a coping plan for when you're feeling dysregulated, what to do for yourself and how to help yourself. And there is actual journal prompts for when people want to just come home in the evenings and write. There's a section for gratitude journaling. So this journal has a few things, but it's basically a book of tools to work through that people have found helpful. And of course, there's also some blank pages to just really free your mind and journal write.
I like it. Like, what inspired you to, obviously the work that you do, but, when it comes to creating any type of creative content, there is a thought before and an inception before. Yeah, I said that right. A thought before conception that leads to an inception that leads to this kind of manifested work. Yes. So what, throughout your journey, throughout your professional career, what was like, man, I need to create something tangible that is an addition and an attachment to what I'm providing as a service that my clients and others can take with them and have more in their toolbox.
I think, as a therapist, I'm always saying to clients, you got to do the work, you got to do the work. And once again, clients have shared with me that doing the work outside of therapy is not easy. And after hearing so many people say that, I thought to myself, well, how can I make the work easier for them? How can I make it easier for them to apply some of the things that we've been talking about in session? And so I did some of the things that I've done, again, is create this journal that I also use it in session with some of my clients, and they have found it to be helpful. And I created a YouTube channel where I have certain breathing exercises and positive affirmations and stuff, so that people don't have to feel like they're alone trying to figure it out outside of session. So a lot of my clients will say, I listened to those videos and I did my breath work. It was so much easier. I listened to the positive affirmations while I was driving, and now some of them are stuck in my head. And the ones that really stand out to me, I've written them down. I repeat them to myself often, so I have been trying again to just give, I realize we live in a society where people want, like you said, tangible things and action-based things. Right. And so I wanted to create that for clients so that they would have some things outside of sessions.
I like it. Look, I'm for the creative space. Obviously, this right here, right? So this is definitely needed, and definitely, I think it's a value add that is rare. A lot of times, you're given suggested reading and whatnot, but it's not like it's coming from the source in which you're receiving help, right? And I think everything has its own marker that it's kind of like steps to a building, right? Like one brick here, one brick there. But eventually you can build a path worth following, right? So one more break. and then we're gonna sign off and we tell everybody where they can connect. Hey, what's up? It's CVMK33. Look, I want you to subscribe, hit the notification bell, subscribe here, everywhere, so you can get the latest and greatest of this podcast content. Stay tuned. All right, y'all, subscribe, YouTube, CVMK, Instagram, CVMK_global. It is, I almost forgot my own handle. It is what it is _show, where it goes down, www.cvmkglobal.store. So, Noderea, you have been absolutely amazing. Thank you again. You know, if they wanted to connect, right, and they said, look, I need to begin the process, interested in, you know, obtaining the journal, where can they follow you? Where can they, you know, have these discussions and really start getting help?
Sure. So I would say one of the easiest places to find me and to follow me is on Instagram at Noderea. My website is also www.northnodetherapy.com. I'll put my business phone number out there, 929-366-7302. I do respond to text as well. And as far as the journal, it is going to be available this month. If you follow me on Instagram, then you guys will see the post when I drop it and be able to find the link on where to find it. I'm also on YouTube, Noderea John, Therapy and Melanin. So you guys can find me there. But I think a lot of people find me through Instagram, again, North Node Therapy, and TikTok. So I'm a little bit of everywhere and trying to, you know, be out there on the social media. So you guys can find me.
Noderea is everywhere, y'all. Connect with her, northnodetherapy.com. Hit her up on the gram. That's where we're connected, yo. She has some amazing stuff. Trust me, you need a therapist, and I recommend Noderea John. Connect with her. It drops this month, right? The journal drops this month. Support her, support creative content, support Black authors. Just support. I always say support gets supported, right? Support gets supported. And if you want to keep supporting, you want to keep listening to me, you know what you got to do. YouTube, CVMK, Instagram, it is what it is, _show, CVMK33, CVMK_global, TikTok, CVMK global. It's the same thing, y'all. CVMK. Come on now. Put it together. CVMKglobal.store. Where it goes down. And until next time, guys, thanks.
If you think exercise alone got me looking like this, well, think again. CVMK Global Super Thick got me right. I'm obsessed, and yeah, I won't stop talking about it because it helped me grow in all the right places. Its creatine provides a fast and reliable way to increase your power, size, and shape, and it's scientifically proven to help you reach your physical goals in a safe, controlled manner. So if you want to increase muscle size, pump, and thickness in your muscle groups, you need Super Thick.